It's been really dry the last couple of days, and I looked at the forecast, and tomorrow and Tuesday, so today is Sunday, you're gonna see this on Tuesday, if I can edit it in time. But we're gonna get some rain for the next couple of days, so I'm gonna go ahead and spend a little bit of time in the garden before it rains, but we do need it 100%. It has been very dry and lately very, very hot. So I'm extremely looking forward to some rain. Well, hi, pretty girl. Look at your big girl horns. Such a beautiful girl. We're gonna go ahead and harvest a good bit more of this beautiful lemon balm. It smells so delicious. And my last video I shared with you guys, I talked about how to set it up as a tincture. So we'll check that when we go over back to the apothecary. But for right now, I'm gonna harvest a good bit so we can load it up and have it for later. Now for harvesting your lemon balm, basically just think about giving it a little bit of a haircut. You're not going to cut all the way down to the roots because it will keep coming back. So what I like to do is just give it a nice little trim and harvest what I need and let it continue to grow because this is one that tends to grow pretty fast. It is in the mint family, so it has a square stem, much like the mint, but that is how I'm harvesting. And you know, this is part of like the regenerative aspect of herbalism. Harvest what you need and allow it to grow, and then take it back and preserve it and learn what to do with it. What you doing, baby? Come and say hi. Hi, baby girl. I think we have what we need for today. We got a basket full. Smells amazing. Let's go back in. We're gonna go ahead and wash it because it's been dry. We're due for some rain, but kind of needs it. I saw a little bit of mud and some spider webs on it. So let's go back in and wash it before we preserve it. Now what I'm looking for when I'm cleaning and I'm washing my herbs are anything that might be gunky, yucky, chewed on by a bug, a little too old for use, and just some things that just might be a little bit funky. And every once in a while, make sure that we have the exact plant matter that we are seeking, because sometimes we get a little piece of grass in there and we have got to go and sort through it and just make sure that everything that we are preserving is the plant that we want to preserve. I'll give all the plant matter a really good wash, and then I'll use my salad spinner to get as much of the excess water off as possible. Now my main goal for today was just to harvest as much that I possibly can so that I can load it up into my harvest rate freeze dryer. That is one of my favorite ways of drying plant matter. However, it is not the only way to dry your plant matter, but one of the reasons why I choose to use my harvest rate is mainly because it preserves as much of the nutritional, also the medicinal properties as well. And when we reconstitute it, which we're going to do tomorrow as soon as it is done, because I want to show you the difference, and when we take the dried leaves and we put them in hot water or cold water, I want to show you what happens, how the plant can actually just reabsorb it and turn it into pretty much what it would be when it was fresh. So that is one of the reasons. The other reason is because, you know, if I'm going out and I'm harvesting, fresh is best. And to me, there's no comparison when it comes to preserving your herbs freeze-dried versus just air-dried. You have such a fresh flavor after you've freeze-dried your plants versus drying it. You do lose that color and you do lose a little bit of the overall flavor. So it's almost as if, and I treat it as if my freeze-dried herbs are as fresh as soon as they're reconstituted back into water. And that's definitely one of the main reasons why I do choose to freeze dry over air drying. Now, if anyone is interested in purchasing their own Harvest Right freeze dryer, I do have an affiliate link that I'll put down below. It supports our channel as well as lets Harvest Right know that we are doing a really good job teaching people about how to preserve medicinal herbs that you've got growing in your garden. And not just herbs, we do a lot of food. I do a lot of fruit because that is my go-to snack because it's an alternative and better for me than candy. And I really enjoy just showing and teaching people some of the great things that we've been able to freeze dry and enjoy here on our homestead, from our homestead. Now for this, I'm gonna get as many of the leaves as possible. If I get a little bit of the stem in this, I'm not necessarily like, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world, but we're gonna mainly use the leaves for our tea form. It took about, I would say around 12 hours for us to be able to freeze dry it all together. And I was a little late coming back up. So I came back up, it was about 14 hours after, but this is one little trick that I've learned that works pretty well when it comes to your freeze drying, is just take your plant matter that you're going to try to get off of the stem and just use your hands, and it crumbles really easily, which I think is pretty lovely. I have learned, because I tend to make a mess and I'm very open and honest about showing all of my messes, but if you take your mason jar and you put it over a bowl, at least if you make a mess, you can at least catch the mess that you make. But I'm just gonna go ahead and get this all crunched up, and then we are gonna brew up a cup of tea because I wanna show you what happens after the leaves have been completely reconstituted, so you can kind of get an idea and see. I started kind of getting a few ideas with what I could do with some of these stems, because I know that there's going to be a good bit that we're not going to obviously put in this, but I'm thinking I might take the stems and put them in a mason jar and infuse them in some oil so that I can set up a salve. I have a lot of lemon balm still that I need to process and use. We set some up as a tincture the other day, which I'll show you guys that as well, because I do need to go back in and just shake it for the day. Okay, here's what's really funny. When you feel like your jar is really full, all you do is you just get in there and you can crunch it up. Look, I'm just gonna kind of keep it a little bit fine, but on the ones that we're going to brew up as a tea, I'm gonna leave the leaves a little bit whole. But I'm not gonna over crunch them, at least try not to. Because what I don't want is I don't want it to necessarily turn into like a full powder. I want some of the leaves to actually be a little bit bigger. But this also works too. I might just do that and then pour it all in. So basically I just repeated that process until all 4 trays were done. That was kind of boring and I didn't want to take you along to all of that B-roll, but this is what it ended up looking like. And I do have some already dried lemon balm that I want to share with you the difference. Now this has just been regular air dried versus freeze dried, and you can see the difference between the freeze dried and the regular dried. The color is, I think it's quite noticeable. Not only that, but the smell, the flavor is also going to be really perfect. I'm gonna take this and we're gonna set this up in a little bit of an oil so that I can make a skin sap with it. I wanna infuse and save the rest of the stems to be able to use, and then I did save some leaves as well that we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and brew up some hot water, and so I can show you what happens when it's reconstituted. So I'm gonna get that going and then get this in a jar with some oil, and then we're gonna talk a little bit more about the medicinal properties. If you caught my last video of setting up lemon balm in a tincture, this is using 50% alcohol, and I've shaken it once a day. I still need to come in here with my immersion blender. I meant to bring that up today as well. Oops, I forgot. But I'll come back up and do that and then macerate this up even more for the rest of the process. But wanted to show you. I had to shake it. And I have had some people reach out and ask, while I'm here, I'm gonna do my passion flower as well. I had some people come out and ask about if you forget to shake your herbs when they're in the tincturing process. Yes, sometimes it happens. There are a few days where I'm like, you know what, I don't feel like coming up here and shaking all of them, but it's not necessarily a problem. It does help though with the potency of the extraction process, so it is good to have good practice to come up and shake your herbs as much as possible. This is going to be a little experiment, and I'm hoping that it is going to work. I don't see why it wouldn't work. Now, when you're setting up your plant matter for oil, I'm using olive oil, but you can use whatever you want. We just use olive oil because I like it on my skin. But basically, gonna do kind of the same thing. Let me set this one aside because that's what I'm gonna use in my tea. I wouldn't see why this wouldn't work. The stems have a good bit of the volatile oils that we're kind of seeking when it comes to setting up an oil. And basically this process, I'm going to put it in oil. You can do a couple of different ways. If you want to make this quicker, you can set this in like a yogurt maker after the oil's already in the process, and it kind of slowly warms it. You could also use a crock pot if you have that. I have time, so I'm just gonna go ahead and just put oil in it and then just put it down below underneath of my cabinet. It's just easier for me. But if I needed this quicker, there are alternatives. I do know some as well who will take their plant matter when it's infusing in oil and place it in a nice sunny window and just leave it there. I don't really do that often. I've done that with goldenrod and it is beautiful, but I've got time. I feel like I should have safety glasses on. All right, we're gonna speed this process up. It doesn't have to be perfect and it doesn't have to be pretty. Because in the end, after I'm done, after it's sat for at least 30 days, I'm gonna go ahead and just pour all of the oil out and keep the oil separate. And then that is what I take and I will make my skin salves with it with our beeswax, which I'm due to show you guys. I'm due to render down more of our beeswax because we have it set aside from our last honey harvest. So we will definitely show you guys that. I do have some leaves in here, which is just fine. And man, I wish you could smell this. I also wanted to touch on, because I don't remember if I did talk about this aspect of lemon balm, but there is some pretty interesting, and I might have, I might have done this already. I might have shared this with you, but it's okay. There is some pretty interesting research information in regards to lemon balm and helping with cognitive impairments, especially with individuals who are experiencing Alzheimer's. So I thought that was interesting. Make sure to definitely research that yourself. And then the other thing too is, you know, when I first started using lemon balm Yes, it does kind of relax me and kind of help with sleep. But I also recognize that it really it puts me in a better mood. It's very uplifting. So that is the feeling that I do get from drinking lemon balm and having it in a tea or in a tincture form. But the other thing that I found is that it has antidepressant properties as well. And so that is one that I was like, yes, no wonder. No wonder. It just makes me smile every time I see it, every time I smell it, and of course every time that I enjoy it. So this is just straight olive oil. I'm going to pretty much fill up, make sure all the plant matter is covered. Now this I'm going to treat as if it's dry, okay? Unlike fresh plant matter, where if I go and I harvest fresh plant matter and I infuse it in oil, I let it breathe because the moisture still needs to kind of come out of it. So what I'll do is when it's a fresh plant, and you can absolutely do this fresh as well, I just didn't want to, I wanted to just use what I had. But when you're using your fresh plant matter and infusing it in oil, you want the moisture to be able to come out. So you take your cheesecloth, place it over your jar, and then take your ring and screw it. This, I don't need to do that because there's no moisture in this at all. So I can just take this. I have to get a new lid. So I will get a new lid, a bigger lid. Yeah, it's been a day. And just seal it all the way. And then same thing, just store it in an area where you know that you're gonna go. Shake it once a day, 30 days, press it out, which basically means that you strain it out, press it out, and then you're left with the oil. My water is done, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab a cup of tea, and we are going to, let's reconstitute this and see what happens. Lemon balm is definitely a very beautiful herb to not only just grow in your garden, but use it in many different forms. You can use it topically. You can use it as a tea at night. It's very calming, relaxing. It's great for tension, migraines, and just kind of quieting your mind. All right. Uh-oh. Did I steam up? Oh, I might have steamed up. Hold on. It's hot. I should have thought about that. Okay. All right, here we go, friends. Let me just snip this part off and put that in there. Maybe it would have been better if I did cold water. Yeah, it doesn't take very long at all to reconstitute. Give it a second. All right. So, literally been just a couple of seconds. And look at that. You remember how brittle that was? Now it is literally just like a leaf. I mean, it is a leaf. So, no surprise there, but isn't that just crazy? I mean, how it just goes right back. Now, obviously this is hot water, so it's gonna wilt a little bit, which is what you're seeing, but what I wanna show you is how dried it was. I could crumble it. This, I can't crumble because it's basically right back to what it was. I still need to go find a lid for this, which is under there somewhere. Next thing that I'm gonna do is just label it. Label its name, label its scientific name, as well as the source. This came from our garden and we freeze dry it. I will also label this name, scientific name, parts used, what is the menstruum that I'm using, which is olive oil. I'll put the date down there as well. Dates are important. I'm also going to put an oxygen absorber in this. I have had a lot of people reach out and also say if you don't use an oxygen absorber, you can use a vacuum sealer. I do have a vacuum sealer. It is down at the house. I need to bring it up here. And so I'm going to end up doing that too. But other than that, thank you guys for coming with me and learning a little bit more about lemon balm and how to use it, and some different ways that you can incorporate it into your life. So, as always, don't be afraid to get your hands dirty and learn something old. Bye, guys.